to lay their head down on that pillow and I'm going to be like, that's Fahad's butt pillow. And I say that too, will not care.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to Geekdom Movies. We're very excited to talk about an early screening that we got to see. This movie has only been released overseas in the UK, however we did get early access to it, and we're very excited to review it and let you guys know whether or not you should watch it. We have differing opinions here, so this should be a fun one. We are talking about Sponge on the Run, the new SpongeBob movie with so many cameos that will blow your mind. I grew up with SpongeBob, and I think Fahad did grow up with SpongeBob. George did not.
No, he did not.
So there's going to be some interesting perspectives. So this is my co-host, Fahad Shatari, and my other co-host, George Bogdan. And we are Geekdom Movies, so if you haven't heard of us before, welcome. And if you have, welcome back. Let's jump into SpongeBob. So the Sponge on the Run movie, I grew up with SpongeBob. I love SpongeBob. It's probably my favorite cartoon of all time. And it's made for kids, and it was a cartoon that was supposed to be made for adults. Steven Hillenburg, rest in peace, he made this show for adults. He pitched it to a bunch of adult networks, and they didn't pick it up. And then he pitched it to Nickelodeon, and Nickelodeon picked up this show with one episode in. So it ended up being, he had to slant it and make it towards kids, but it was created with adults in mind, which is one of the reasons that it's just so good. And the dynamic between this young, plucky SpongeBob, who's, a really hard worker and really optimistic, but not that bright, and then the older, very intelligent, but just totally pessimistic Squidward makes for such a good dynamic. And then every background character, even watching this as an adult, I was like, where is Pearl? Where is so-and-so? Where's this character? Are they going to show up? Every character, I realized watching this movie, plays a really important role in this world and really brings it all together to make it feel like a cohesive unit.
Not to cut you off, but funny story about, what's the name? Steven
Hillenburg, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, who died, you said 2 years ago?
2 years ago, and they gave him a tribute at the Super Bowl because of the Super Bowl episode.
And everybody talked about how they ruined that tribute because everybody was expecting more, and it was just the talk of the town for a month straight. But, nonetheless, this is his last writing credit. This is the last SpongeBob movie.
So he did work on this movie.
Mm-hmm, yep. He did majority, well, I don't want to go into spoilers, but he did majority of the story and some interesting things that he connects to their childhood and things like that, and Gary.
And that makes me feel better, because some of the stuff in this movie, without going into spoilers, I was like, that doesn't really seem to fit the character that I grew up with. And I was kind of mad about it. But if Steven Hillenburg himself did it, then maybe that is what he had in mind the whole time.
It was kind of like coming home story, seeing these kids, seeing them as kids, but also seeing them as, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to go into spoilers. I'll let you just keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the hold that SpongeBob has on us, because I'm watching this with someone and they grew up with SpongeBob too, and we're like, that's not how Squidward and SpongeBob met, and getting mad at these fictional cartoon characters because we grew up with them and they're important to us and they're such a big part of our lives. I feel like SpongeBob is my friend and Squidward is my neighbor, and I feel like I know these people. They're these sea creatures because it's just such a great show. And one of the things that I always really appreciated about SpongeBob, even as a little kid, is how self-aware it is. That it is a cartoon that the audience is watching. It's not really a fourth wall breaking show.
But it is, though.
But it is. So it breaks that fourth wall in the sense that it does things with it makes fun of other cartoons and other shows within itself, just by virtue of being a show, and kind of the stereotypical villain character is a little tiny plankton, and Mr. Krabs is this greedy capitalist know-it-all who just wants to make money, and it's very self-aware. It knows that it's a cartoon, and it plays around with that concept, and that very much is what this movie does. It knows that this is not to be taken seriously, but it does have heart. But it also knows that, like, let's just have as much fun as we can with this. And even though some of this movie wasn't the most entertaining thing I've ever seen, some of the fun things that they throw in here for the adults are so funny and so attention-grabbing that you cannot help but just
laugh.
Like, what is this? Like, I can't believe that this isn't a SpongeBob movie. And it's so exciting that I wouldn't possibly give it away or share it with you, some of the funny things that happen in the middle of this movie.
Do you remember we got to see, what was the one that came out in 2014? When did the other one come out?
I don't know. It was a few years ago.
We saw it together.
Did
remember?
we? Mm-hmm. I don't remember that.
We went to you made me go to the movies with you.
Did
to
I?
See it.
That sounds like something I would do.
And I was like, well, I grew up with it, but, you know, like, just to give a little background into Shannon's, like, mindset, she had a blast. And you loved that movie, yeah. We were at Imagine in Rochester. Okay. You picked me up in your white car. I remember that. What was that white car called? Do you still have that white car?
White Lightning.
White Lightning. This was like whenever it came out, like 4 or 5 years
That was a very long time ago. My memory from that era of my life when I was sick is not the best, so I don't really remember that,
But you enjoyed it.
I believe you. I'll take your word for it. Now, this is not a Dora the Explorer. This is not a live-action remake where, like, they're just completely making fun of themselves. But it does have some of that aspect in it.
But think about it this way. If this movie was released in theaters with everybody that grew up with SpongeBob, and you were in that theater with everybody else who grew up watching SpongeBob, how much more would your enjoyment be compared to watching it at home on streaming?
A lot more.
That's the key. This movie, I'm watching this, I'm like, this deserves to be.
It should have been in the theaters. It's the animation in this is really cool.
Oh my goodness.
I miss the hand-drawn. I would have loved to see the hand-drawn. I also really miss Steven Hillenburg being the voice of SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not possible for this movie, but it is sad to see somebody's voice straining to try and sound like SpongeBob. They do a really good impression, but it's not...
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
But it's still good enough where you can kind of just like...
Yeah. And I thought, you know, Patrick was a little bit too dumb, and, like, there were some things that kind of...
But Patrick had the best...
Which one?
It's like, do you think we're going to go on a big trip, and, like, we're going to tell each other how we're annoyed at each other, then be mad at each other, but then come back together and realize we need each other, and then we apologize? Yeah, and they did that gag in 2 minutes, and I loved it.
And they got it out of the way so they didn't have to do it later in the movie.
The gag setup, like, the movie is okay, but the setup to each, like, thing was, like, really well put together.
And that's what I'm talking about. The SpongeBob always knew that it was a cartoon.
Yeah.
It always knew that it was going to be making fun of itself and other cartoons, and it knew that it was going to break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
So gags like that are a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And whenever people... Anybody that didn't grow up with SpongeBob is usually like, so annoying, how can you watch that show, I hate that show. And I'm like, you missed the point of the show. It's not that you're supposed to be watching a cartoon. You're watching some guy sit in his studio and, like, make fun of all these other cartoons and just have a blast behind the camera. And, like, that's the fun of SpongeBob, and that's part of the
enjoyment.
It's kind of like Animaniacs or something, where they're...
Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah.
Ed, and Eddie.
I hated Ed, and Eddie, but that's because I didn't grow up with it. I didn't understand it, so...
Well, what's your final, like, rating, I guess?
If you grew up with SpongeBob, and you liked SpongeBob, you might find this to be fun. You're definitely going to have some fun with some of these cameos that I did not see coming. Don't look on the DVD case. Don't look at the cameos. Just let yourself be surprised.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the best way to go into this. This is a good way to get your kid into SpongeBob, and it's going to entertain them. It's bright. It's colorful. It's funny. It has enough there to keep them entertained for 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. So for my review, I pretty much don't really have much to add except what Shannon basically said. She did a pretty good job. I would say that one of the best things about this movie was that I learned after watching it and I'm forgetting his name, Steven
Hillenburg,
was a scientist, and he made a show for kids to discover like coral reef and like the discovery of why the ocean is like fun place to be and why you would want to be there. Kind of like, because I think he wanted the next generation of kids to know about the ocean, why it's important, so we can save it in case whatever that's going on with planet Earth these days, with climate change and all kinds of other things. I really appreciate. I didn't know that, and I really appreciate that. The funny thing is, this show I feel like was unintentionally made for weed smokers in college, because that is the target audience that really got into it for kids.
And this was before Adventure Time, South Park. It was before all of those shows that were just...
Well, maybe not South Park.
Well, it was before Rick and Morty. It was before BoJack Horseman. It was before Adventure Time. It was before people made shows just to smoke pot, too.
Yeah.
That was before this.
And this had a huge, like, following in college and, like, late, like, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, which I can totally understand. And this movie does feel like you're on a trip. Like, you're on some kind of weird drug trip while watching it. The animation is beautiful. I did not miss the 2D animation. It just felt realistic. Like, it was interesting. It was like 3D, but it also wasn't 3D. It had a nice, like, it felt like...
I haven't seen anything like it before.
That's what I was trying to think. Like, it didn't really remind me of anything. I'm like, oh, they're copying Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks. No, they kind of did its own thing enough to where it was cool.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, there are so many funny lines in this movie. If you watch the trailer, you already know one of the big cameos, so we'll talk about it. Keanu Reeves in this, and he steals the movie, in my opinion. Definitely. He is so funny. He plays a tumbleweed that's a sage. I don't know how they came up with that, but I'm so glad it exists.
Somebody spun a wheel, a weird wheel. Like, okay, we got tumbleweeds and we got Keanu Reeves. What can we do with that?
Anyways, long story short, one thing that I really appreciate, now looking back on it after Steven has passed away, of course, is that he wanted to give these characters kind of like a coming home story with them as kids, growing up, having this experience, them continuing to mature and grow as adults, and like not adults, I don't know what you call them, but just like older characters of these, like animated form.
Yeah.
I think like for him this was kind of like the big like emotional moment to kind of
around.
Yeah, because you can feel like he probably knew his time was up. He has ALS, I think, so it's kind of like you're gonna die. Yeah, like you have like a 3-4 years heads up, like you got a few years left before you go. And I think for him it was just kind of like this thing that really brought it home. Like, I want this to be, like, a final hurrah of these characters. And, like, I don't know where SpongeBob goes after this.
I don't know either.
And it's really hard. I mean, like, I'm sure they're going to make more, because it does...
Nickelodeon's biggest cash cow. They make all their
money
off.
Besides Avatar: The Last Airbender.
No, but one of the major things keeping Nickelodeon alive is SpongeBob.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where they go either. I hope he had other people that he really trusted who were writers. Maybe I'm not really sure how it all works.
I mean, they've been making new SpongeBob material for about 15 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while, so they must have
no
certain
other show
people.
Has that. Not on Nickelodeon.
Right. This is just a great homage to the characters. It doesn't do anything big like the last movie, but it also does fun things where you're like, it really is, like, me and George were talking about it a little bit, and it's kind of like the first 20 minutes is your usual shtick of if you watch the cartoon, that's what it feels like. You're watching a 20-minute episode on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
But after that 20 minutes, I kind of like, it just kind of like escalates into something.
Yeah, it becomes its own thing.
Yeah, and it's awesome. Like, it really does, like, if you're not feeling this movie for 20, 30 minutes, just wait. Wait for Keanu Reeves. Wait for the real adventure to really go, and it's just like non-stop awesomeness. Really great setups to each scene having like its own gag reel. One of my favorite scenes was the armor room. I'm not gonna spoil it, but that's I loved that scene so much. It was I was having a blast. There's some really good song numbers in this movie that I really enjoyed that I did not. With cameos of certain singers that I just really appreciated. That I didn't see coming. You could tell a lot of like Hollywood and just like a lot of people just love.
Like I wanted my turn to be in a SpongeBob movie.
Yeah.
Put me in this movie.
It's like everybody wants to either be in Star Wars or like SpongeBob.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I say watch. Like if you grew up with this cartoon, no brainer. Like you're gonna be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids, great introduction to sit down with your family and introduce your kids to these characters. It's all around just a. I preferred watching this in the I really wish. There's a lot of movies I've seen this year. I'm like, oh man, this would have been great in movie theaters. I think I've said that. Like now that Wonder Woman's coming out on like Christmas Day on HBO Max, I'm just kind of like deflated. Like I have a big screen TV, and so does Shannon, and so does George. We all have a great home theater system, but there is just something about the movie. There's a magic. I mean, like we do movie news and movie reviews, but we do
it with other people as an experience.
Like, Mulan was good, but I think I would have enjoyed it more in movie theaters.
Definitely.
I think, it just, I'm ready to go back to have these movies deserve, like, this is his last movie as the creator of SpongeBob. I wish we could have seen this.
15-year journey.
Yeah, like, I really wish we could have seen it on the big screen. I really think you'd really enjoy it. George, off to you, sir.
All right. I have some mixed thoughts on this movie. Once again, this is my perspective of not being a SpongeBob watcher. But yeah, so the first 20 minutes of the movie I had a very hard time with. I was about ready to shut it off. I would have shut it off if it wasn't for the review because I just could not handle that humor. It just was not in any way smart.
A lot funnier when you're 10.
Yes, I would say so. I was like, at this age, this does not work for me. But after that, it started to pick up. I thought the animation was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like stunning graphics that kind of made it. What it kind of reminded me of was that one anime film that we had seen.
Leathering with You?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It kind of reminded me a bit of that, where it had like a mixture of like the 3D and 2D together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
like
yeah,
you could see.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah, that movie was amazing.
Yeah,
and this brought a little bit of memory of that. Obviously, it all had different texturing than that movie did, because once again, this wasn't anime. This was an animated film. But it was still somewhat similar in that regard. I would have to say. I could tell SpongeBob's voice was a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Even just my memories from the clips and stuff to this.
Yeah, Steven Hillenburg had a very distinct SpongeBob voice.
Yeah. And I think my hearing was just on key when I watched it. So
because you're a very musical person. So.
Yeah, and I think I noticed some other voices that were from other characters that I've seen in other things too. That I think I texted you about that. One of the characters kind of sounded like the woman who's the mechanic in The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about now. I just hadn't. I watched this movie, and like 20 minutes later, I was right now watching it. So you guys were like literally like talking about it. I'm like, I haven't even seen it. Like I'm waiting. I literally finished the movie and drove over here.
Yeah, I don't know how you picked up on that. That computer had like 3
But
lines.
you were right. Yeah. But she's right. No, she has a very in The Mandalorian. She has a very distinct voice. Yeah. And you're right. When you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally from The Mandalorian. Huh. Also because I just like literally a week ago watched her character, so that's probably why you picked up on it.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I thought it was rather interesting. I was a little disappointed though with the animation they had with Keanu Reeves. I thought it was going to be a little bit better. Just he didn't quite fit with the tumbleweed as much as I was hoping he would. And they almost had it right. They almost did. Huh. But it was a few degrees off.
I don't know what you're talking about. Like I don't. He's a face in a tumbleweed.
I know, but it didn't quite.
You wanted it to look more realistic?
I wanted
realistic?
him to fit in the tumbleweed a little better.
Like all of the real tumbleweed faces out there?
Exactly. Okay. Like it was not a Veggie Tales. But yeah, it was still a really good movie, especially for kids. I think.
You like it more than Trolls, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't know if I like this more than Trolls.
Really?
Ooh. Well,
Yeah.
you gotta remember, he
Trolls
didn't
1
grow up.
or Trolls 2?
Trolls 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Couldn't stand
But
it.
I think it's because he didn't grow. I mean,
Right.
you know, it's not his generation.
There's
I don't know.
no
What are you guys
nostalgia for
watching?
me.
Yeah.
Would you watch like Lord of the Rings and
Nope,
Narnia?
never. I still haven't seen Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Yeah, we keep talking about this.
Okay, we're doing a whole Lord of the Rings together, just so you can finally experience it like it's meant to be.
I haven't watched.
That's a
all
whole
the way
other
through
discussion.
either.
Let's just stick to SpongeBob.
Okay.
Keep going.
Did you watch VeggieTales at least?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
If you're a Christian and you live in America,
You
apparently it's as bad as not believing in Jesus.
You know that
Why.
cucumber can't find its hairbrush.
I didn't know
You
that.
know that.
I gotta say, the
it's been a
VeggieTales
while.
movie in theaters was really good. Like really funny.
The Jonah one?
I don't remember. I just remember going to see.
Jonah was
it the
hilarious.
So you were like
Yeah.
12 when you saw that.
No. It came out like 2012, 2013. It was a VeggieTales movie in theaters.
Yeah, I think it was.
So I was definitely not 12.
No, it came out in like the late 90s.
No. There was a VeggieTales. Okay, we'll talk about it.
Jonah and the Big
It
Fish?
was
No.
Jonah. I
Was it
thought
Jonah?
it was Jonah.
They've only
No.
had one major movie.
Yeah.
What the hell did I see in theaters?
I don't know.
Was it?
Okay,
Was
we'll
it
talk-
Jericho? Was it?
I don't. We'll talk about it later.
Was
Keep
it
going, George.
Exodus? I don't remember.
Shannon has to leave soon, so we just gotta push through this review.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So overall, this movie, I would not normally watch it, and I normally wouldn't watch it again.
I would 100% watch it again.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly based off if you really like SpongeBob, then you probably should watch this movie. If you don't, well then I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right, guys. I think we're gonna move on. Shannon, do you want to close us off?
Yeah, alright, well, thanks guys for watching our review of SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run. When it comes out in your country, or if it's already out, let us know what you think, and put it in the comment section down below. Be sure to like us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever we have out there. Go out there and like and subscribe, and have a great day, guys, and Geek the Movies out.
Bye.